The Common Ground World Competition happening on August 6, 2024 will feature the Chandelier Earrings meta. The craft requirements for Chandelier Earrings are 4 copper jump ring, 2 silver jump ring, and 2 silver wire. It is crafted in the jewelry crafting table with the fastest craft time of 90 seconds and stored in the jewelry store. For this competition, the Chandelier Earrings will get 40,000 stars for each one sold. It is important to remember that the jewelry crafting tables are negatively impacted by dirty, and many of the buildings used for this meta cast dirty, such as forges and wire mills. The trade time for this competition is 20 seconds with a 1 gasoline cost per trade. The starting layout provided for this competition is a desert biome facing south. You start with a lumberjack and some tree farms to craft wood, a panner house, ore storage, and some copper panning sites to craft copper ore. You could eventually build a forge to start crafting copper, but you will also need to build a wind turbine and an industrial worker to pick up the energy and take it to the warehouse that has been provided. You do have an oil seep, which I recommend you take advantage of since it supplies up to 4 passive crude oil, which is very good for petroleum and gasoline production. If you don't plan to use the provided water pumps, fuel storage, and storehouse, you can sell them for some nice starting cash. Despite copper panning sites being provided, my recommendation on the cash rush is that you sell gold instead, as it will still give more cash and will be easier to set up. Since you will have forges in your final design, I recommend you set up your cash rush layouts in a way where you will not need to move your forges around for your final design. The cash boosts for this competition are copper from 1,860 to 3,720 and silver wire from 4,390 to 8,800. The rewards for this competition are the standard Gala rewards for reaching the top 1,200 placements in the leaderboard by the time the competition ends. Rewards are usually distributed directly to your account within 5 days. This is my Chandelier Earrings build showcase. I am utilizing some NFTs for this design. I'm going to show you the production rate and production monitor. Afterwards, I'll explain which NFTs, and then I'll show you how this build performs if you decide not to use any of those NFTs, but I did design this with the NFTs that I am using in mind, so it's not going to be as efficient without these NFTs, but it will still work. It's still going to be a competitive build to use for this competition. So it is making 104 Chandelier Earrings per hour. It's been running for almost 18 hours now. It's an easy meta with not a whole lot of items involved, and I made it easier by not having to use any of the foundry buildings, which are expensive, but you could come out with something more efficient if you decided to use the foundry buildings. As long as you understand how they work, they reduce the craft time of any of the forges that are right next to them, and the foundries don't need a road, but you will need to craft silica in order to craft jump rings using the foundry. I'm not going to go too much into details on how exactly the foundry works in this build showcase because I'm not using a foundry, but I'm going to explain all the other crafting process using the forges and the wire mills. So I am making 875 copper per hour. That's enough for 437 jump rings per hour, which would get you at most 109 Chandelier Earrings per hour, but I'm not making enough of the silver wire and silver jump rings. So silver is at 831 per hour. I'm making 415 silver wire, and then I'm using about half of that to make 207 silver jump rings. That's what's limiting me from getting higher than 104 of these Chandelier Earrings. I could possibly replace one of the copper panning sites with a silver panning site and maybe increase it to like 106 per hour. I didn't try doing that. I didn't want to make that adjustment, but there's just an idea just in case you want to take this up a little more. So the NFTs that I am using for this design, the Great Woodlands effect card, I'm using the ancient one, but you don't have to use the ancient one. You could use at least the rare one or better. This reduces the craft time of the tree farms by a certain percentage depending on the rarity of your effect card. I'm using 10 of the Mirandus Skins. I actually have 11, but I'm using one from each of the 10 sets, so it's the same thing as having the 10 Mirandus Skins, one from each pack. So this gives me the maximum effect bonus of a 10% craft time reduction and a 25% movement speed to everything in my town. And the other NFT that I'm using that impacts the production rates is the Common Ground Town Hall. This This reduces the craft times of the tree farms just a little bit more. I'm not using an express depot. I'm using the regular trade depot. That still works. You could also use the express depot. It really won't make a difference. I'm using some paved road NFTs, but these don't impact the production rate, so they're not important and they're not required. Here's how the build is doing without utilizing any NFTs. It's making 90 chandelier earrings per hour. This has been running for 3 hours now, so that is a stable production rate. The only change that was made was the town hall. It was removed and replaced for a pond. That way this tree farm still has the passive water that it needs. Other than that, nothing else was changed, nothing was rotated. It's all exactly the same as it was, with the design that utilizes those NFTs that I mentioned. I began by explaining copper and silver production. I have 8 logger houses in charge of collecting the wood from the tree farms. I have 5 regular panner houses. These only come with 1 panner worker, but they cast 1 shade, so I can have those closer to my panning sites and tree farms without casting shade on them. I do have 9 panner bunk houses. Each one of those comes with 2 panner workers, but they cast 2 shade. And yes, I do have one right here that is casting 1 shade on that panning site. That is on purpose, but if I didn't want to cast any shade there, then I would replace it for a regular panner house, and I believe it would still work just about the same. I have 22 copper panning sites, and like I mentioned, only one of those is on the yellow craft timer because it has 1 shade. I have 19 silver panning sites. I have 2 ore storages where all the ore gets deposited to, and I have 42 forges. 24 of those are crafting copper, which is all the ones in this rectangle area, and then I have 4 of them and 4 of them right here crafting copper, and then I have 18 forges crafting silver, which are all the rest of them over here on the east side. And I have 2 warehouses to deposit all the copper and silver bars into. And now to explain basically everything else: the wires, the jump rings, and the chandelier earrings. So I have 12 wire mills. 6 are making copper wire, and the other 6 are making silver wire. They all have the 1 passive energy that they need from the nearby power plants. I have 16 jewelry crafting tables. 5 are making copper jump rings. 3 are making silver jump rings, and the other 8 are making chandelier earrings. I do have 2 jewelry stores, which is where the jump rings and the chandelier earrings get stored on. Oh, and the copper wire and silver wire, those get stored in the warehouses as well. I have a standard gasoline setup with 2 water pumps, 2 power plants, refinery in between those crafting gasoline, refinery to the side crafting petroleum. I do have the oil seep to supply up to 4 passive crude oil, so it gives me passive crude oil for the refinery crafting petroleum. And I have a fuel storage across from them in the middle of the refineries like this. This is to make sure that I'm crafting more gasoline than I am petroleum. And I have the trade depot on the northeast corner. Just 1 trade depot is all that's required to make this work. I do have 3 optional spots, as I call them, 2 right here next to the oil seep and 1 on this corner. You can't put a trade depot over here because then it would cast dirty on the crafting tables and thus it would slow them down. So you could have a builder house here. Over here you could also have 2 builder houses, or you could make a road and then put another building here. Maybe you want another forge or a logger house or a wire mill, whatever you may need. There is opportunity here to place down 1 more building. You could also put 2 foundries here if you want to go that route. Probably replace these with forges, that way you get the craft time reduction from the foundries in those 2 spots, and move those 3 logger houses maybe over here could work. Here's what the auto trade looks like. I have most of the items at a quantity of 10, with the exception of the copper jump rings and silver jump rings. I have those at a quantity of 12, but you do want to make sure that your copper, silver, copper wire, and silver wire is at 10. Otherwise your warehouses may get full. If they're jammed up and they have no space for other items, then you will start losing some items. But since the jewelry store only has 3 items that go into it, which are the copper jump rings, silver jump rings, and chandelier earrings, with this trade quantity right here, you should have no issues with losing these items. Now I don't have copper ore and silver ore on auto sell sell, I actually recommend that you do have them on auto sell with quantities of maybe 20 for each one. This build, how I have it right now, is balanced enough to where it uses all of the ore, probably because I do have enough forges for all of the ore. But if you don't have enough forges to use all of your ore, or you are just overproducing ore, then there is the possibility that your ore storages will get full of one type of ore and you won't be able to make any of the other metal, which would cause an issue with your build. So yes, I do recommend having copper ore and silver ore on here with a quantity of 20 should be fine. You shouldn't need to auto sell petroleum unless your fuel storage is closer to your refinery making petroleum than it is closer to the refinery making gasoline. Here's what the build looks like on the visualizer. Total cost is 11.7 million. Wages are 18,190 per minute. You will have no issues paying the wages once you are done and selling a bunch of these chandelier earrings. This file contains two stages, one stage showing you what the starting biome looks like, and of course the other stage is the finished design with the Town Hall NFT and the Mirandus skins in mind. You can find the file for this visualizer on my Discord server, and an invite link to my Discord is available in the description. That's going to be it for the build showcase. I believe this build is simple enough and good enough for this competition. I do believe that you can aim for a higher production rate. I think even 100 per hour is possible without the use of any NFTs, but more than likely you will need a different design that does utilize the foundries. However, whether that's worth it or not, I don't think so, because it will take more time to set that up, since building all those foundries would make the build more expensive like I mentioned earlier, so I don't really think it's worth it. But I'm gonna leave it like this. Hopefully you found it helpful or informative. Please leave a like on the video, leave a comment if you have any questions or feedback. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so, and if you want to help support the channel, check out the links in the description. As always, I appreciate your support and thank you for watching.